see you guys in the dark.
I live in the downtown area of a pretty major city. My street is relatively quiet, but I can't say so much for the surrounding neighborhoods. My city as a whole is infamous for drug activity and gun violence. We also have an increasing number of homeless people as our shelters have almost all closed down. I've generally never minded. Things happen, and I didn't grow up in the best circumstances either. I would never stereotype anyone based on their housing status, and I was even involved with a homeless outreach program at the time. I left and never went back after this. I've been hesitant to help anyone ever since. It's 10 or so at night, and I'm headed to my partner's house, about 30 minutes away from my own. I get about 2 blocks away before remembering I needed gas. I'm not too fond of the area of stopping at a gas station near my apartment at this time of night, but I wasn't going to make it all the way to the suburbs. I pull into one in a not-so-great part of the neighborhood, but it was brightly lit, and there were a lot of people walking by, so I didn't think much of it. I get my gas and go in to grab a couple of snacks. When I came back out, a tall man in a black coat and brown beanie started casually chatting to me. I couldn't tell if he was 25 or 40. His voice is so low that I can barely make out what he's saying. Something about being a music producer and working on a new project. He seems friendly enough, well, maybe a little erratic, so I let him ramble for a few minutes before politely telling him I needed to get going. He tells me his name is Mac. I unlock my door to get in, and this dude gets in the passenger seat with me. At this point, he is no longer a friendly, chatty stranger. I'm fucking terrified. His demeanor hasn't changed enough, though, and he's acting like this is the most normal thing in the world. While I've had more than my fair share of encounters with creeps, nothing like this has ever happened to me. I don't scream. I don't tell him to screw off. I just sit there in fear of what he'd do to me if I resisted. I need money for my son, he says. He's in the hospital with a gunshot wound. His mom's waiting for me there. I know this story is bullshit, but I just want him to get out of my car. I give him what little I have in my wallet and tell him I need to get going. He has the nerve to ask me, "Can you drive me to my friend's house? It's right up the road." What? Isn't he supposed to be going to the hospital for his son? I tried to decline as politely as possible. I tell him my boyfriend is waiting for me, and this opened up the floodgates to a bunch of personal questions about my sex life. What my boyfriend and I are going to do when I get there, and extremely gross, unsolicited comments about my body. I have tried to block out this exact words to me, but it was incredibly gross, and I'm sure that this is it. This is the end. I'm trapped in my own car. The gas station parking lot is empty. I can't tell the police. Even if I could, it would be a really bad idea. I wish I could tell you I had some genius idea that helped me get myself out of this, but I didn't. I'm panicked and frozen, and finally I agree to take him where he supposedly wanted to go. He has me drive around this neighborhood, winding through dark streets with a lot of seemingly abandoned houses, for what seems like forever. He finally had me stop in a parking lot of a beauty salon where his friend supposedly worked, and is going to get a ride with her to the hospital. The parking lot is on a busy street, and brightly lit. If he's going to kill me, he picked a terrible place to do it. He was all over the place, and talked rapidly. Little details of this story keep changing constantly, and he is clearly high as a kite, and probably mentally unstable as well. All the while, he continues to act like we were longtime friends, and nothing about this was terrifying. He keeps telling me he would give anything to trade places with my boyfriend. Ugh, gross. I keep gently reminding him I need to be leaving, and he keeps telling me to stay because his friend will give me money to pay me back for helping his son out. I wonder why she couldn't have just given him the money directly if that was the case. I ask him what's taking his friend so long. He says he doesn't know. Can he use my phone to call her? I want to tell him no. Maybe this is all an elaborate ploy to steal my phone and take off. I'm still thinking he could be a murderer, though. so I reluctantly hand over the phone. He's taking a long time to dial while I'm looking away, and then, oh Jesus Christ, all of a sudden he's looking up porn and jacking off right in front of me. I wish I had a way to prove this, because I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's true, and the image is burned into my mind. Should have seen that one coming, I guess. At this point, I lose my cool and tell him to get the fuck out. I'm done with it. He starts crying, wailing, about how I'm just so hot, and he hated thinking about me with another man, and I just turned him on so much. I'm just staring at him like, okay, too bad for you, but you need to go now. He straightens up with a big smile on his face and says, I'm just fucking with you. I'm not a pussy, so I wouldn't just cry like that. Are you sure you don't want to take me to a completely different location? Yes, I'm freaking sure. I told him my boyfriend was probably worried about me, as an hour ago had gone by this point. Somehow that got his attention, and he got out and left. I drove to my partner's house, shaking. He and I had just started dating at this point, and I didn't want him to think I was stupid or something. So I just nonchalantly told him I was dealing with a creep at the gas station, and it took me a little while. Much later, I told him the real story, and he was appropriately horrified. I wish I could say it stopped there, but I started getting calls from all kinds of local numbers for the next couple of weeks. Only one voicemail was left, and it was a lot of breathing and very faint words I couldn't make out. I'm creeped out, but I try to dismiss it as paranoia. One time I actually answered. Hey, it's Mac. I have your money. I feel like I need to throw up now. I don't need it, I say. Please leave me alone. I hang up as he starts rambling about how beautiful I am and how he wants to see me again. I block every strange number that's been calling me, and the calls stop. I can't imagine how he got my number. My only thought is that when he opened my phone to call his friend, he looked at my contacts, where my own number is displayed at the top. Now, you may wonder why I never called the police. My city is extremely well known for its police using excessive force, especially in the downtown area. People are regularly killed by police here, and I've personally witnessed people be beaten up by cops for quite minor infractions. I do not intend to make any kind of political statement or express my opinions here, but I genuinely felt I could have been putting myself in further danger by calling the police when even after all this was over. Best case scenario, nothing would have been done, and I could have been chewed out by the cops for being stupid enough to let this man into my car. Worst case, they shoot him, and I have to live with that forever. I've regretted that since, though, because a friend of mine later had an encounter with him as well on a completely opposite side of the city, and gave her the same story about his son in the hospital. She ended up driving him around aimlessly for an hour before screaming at him to get the hell out. So, Mac, you're welcome, but let's never fucking meet ever again. This happened last year around Christmas time, as I was on my way to visit my parents. I'm traveling from Nashville to Kent Island, and it's me and my dog Kona. I'm a tall, fairly built man. It's about a 12-hour drive, and it sucked. When we got to Upper VA, around Harrisonburg, I was tired, and Kona needed to go potty. I also needed gas, so I pulled into a gas station around 10 p.m. I pulled up to a pump and started getting gas. While the gas was going, I left Kona in the car and went inside to get some food and much-needed Red Bull. When I walked out of the gas station, I noticed a slender, raggedy man standing by my gas pump. As I reach my car, this man tells me that he is a homeless man and in need of extra clothing, given that it is very cold outside. I am empathetic. However, all I have in my truck are presents for my family and my clothing for myself. I apologize and tell him that I can't help him, but I wish him luck. He says he noticed I have boxes in my truck and that anything will help. I tell him I have no clothes for him, but offered him the food that I just bought in the gas station, but he refused. He grows agitated and asks if he can have the heavy coat that I am wearing. I tell him no, that I need it. He starts yelling and telling me that I am spoiled and live off my parents. I am frightened, and Kona jumps into the driver's seat to observe. He reaches out to grab my shoulder, and I back up and bump into my truck. He approaches to about 1 foot away from me and says, "I need your help," loudly, with one hand on my shoulder and another in his pocket. At this point, Kona gets ape shit in the truck and barking at this man and snarling her teeth. I can hear her bark, so can he. He looks at Kona, and I tell him, "Leave me alone right now, or else I'll open this door and my dog will rip your fucking throat out." This seemed to do the trick. He backed away, and I quickly opened the door and hopped in, forcing my dog out of the driver's seat. She's still going nuts, and I waited until he's far enough away to put away the gas pump. I start to drive away, and on the side of the gas station, I see the same man jump into the passenger side of a black SUV. I was going to get my dog a big steak, but like 5 minutes later, she shit in the truck. So I think that she was scared. Anyway, homeless man at the gas station. Let's not meet again. This story came out of nowhere. I truly wasn't expecting any of this. I've had creepy people and weird things happen, but generally speaking, I'm aware of my surroundings and don't have many issues. I had just broken up with a boyfriend, moved back for the summer until school was started, back up that fall. I got full-time work at the gas station a mile from my parents' house and goofed off with my hometown friends. That was my summer plan, and things were going quite well for the first month. I never really realized how many creeps come into a gas station, and we were in a fairly nice suburb area. We, of course, had our regulars, and one of them, a late 30s guy, started to intentionally wait in my longer line to be checked out, and various things like that. Looking back, I was a bit oblivious. A 21-year-old girl that, due to a previous abusive relationship, I did not see myself as fairly attractive. I just thought these guys were really friendly and nice. So first, he only starts coming to my register. Then suddenly I would see him a few times a shift. I noticed he would always seem very polite, well-mannered, never really giving out skeevy vibes. He had a couple of tween daughters that would be with him here and there, which made him seem harmless to me. Generally, I worked early morning shifts, but flipped to later shifts as I've always been a night owl, getting maybe a couple of hours of sleep before I had to go in. When that happened, this creep was upset with me that he wasn't able to come in to see me because he worked second shift. At this point, I was actively avoiding him, stocking the cooler if I saw him pull up, etc. He started to come when I got off work, and I would delay myself until he left. Then I started getting notes and flowers on my car, until one night I'm walking out to my vehicle, and he popped up from behind it. I backed up, told him I was not interested at all. He assured me that he would woo me to change my mind. I switched schedules, working nights, days, mornings, all over the place so that my schedule wasn't predictable. I'm working one afternoon when up comes this batshit crazy woman with 2 younger girls. So she starts asking her daughters if this is the girl, to which they reply yes. This maniac woman screams and threatens me to stay away from her husband, and I'm like, "Whoa, lady, I have no idea what you're talking about." Apparently the psycho stalker man is married and has been telling his wife he has a younger hot gas station girlfriend that's moving in and blah blah blah. This lady is nuts. Her daughters look super embarrassed, and she was not leaving the gas station. The store owner watching on video from the back called the cops, and the lady was told to leave. At the time I was dating, going out on a few dates, and this one handsome fella started coming up to make sure when I left at night, this guy wasn't going to pop out again. Normally at nights we had 2 people, but the other girl had called in. I have no idea how creepy stalker man noticed, but he slipped in 10 minutes to close, and just kept me company while I was doing slightly closing activities. He was making comments about how no girl should be here alone late at night like this. Why won't I give him a chance? He will move in, buy me a car, and all kinds of creeperisms. I told him no thank you. Your wife wasn't going too keen on this either. This guy flew into a rage, knocked over a display, started screaming at me. What did you tell her? All crazy man style. At this point, I'm trapped inside a gas station after close, but I don't dare go out to the parking lot where I parked my car is off to the side at the back of the store. It's dark, and obviously my stalker friend will follow. Thank goodness my handsome fella happened to be coming home from work and noticed my car still at the gas station and came in to check on me. As soon as he came to the door, he could see my panic, and off took this creeper storming away into the night. My handsome fella helped me pick up the display mess, sat with me until I stopped shaking, and encouraged me to quit the gas station pronto. We called the police. It's a small town, and he was easily found with his white Kia driving erratic. The officer followed up with me. He had a knife, rope, and some duct tape. Creepy married gas station stalker, please let's not meet ever again, at least for your sake. About 7 years ago, when I was 17, my parents went out of town for a weekend and left me at home. This was a pretty common occurrence. My parents trusted me enough. I would usually spend these weekends away, staying with friends or family, as my parents' house is a bit creepy to be alone in, even during the day. We live in a small rural town where everyone knows each other, and generally it's pretty quiet and safe. Saturday I was supposed to stay with a friend, but her parents decided the last minute not to let me stay. It wasn't a big deal that I had to leave. I was somewhat prepared to have to go home because her parents got weird about company sometimes. I left her house around 9:30 or 9:45 p.m. While I was on my way home, I got a weird feeling that I can't really explain. I just knew that I didn't want to stay at my parents' house alone. I called my brother and asked if I could stay with him at the time. He was living with a woman who had a small child. He told me it would be quieter and easier for him to just come and stay with me, since his dog would bark if I tried to come into his house. He said he would be up at our parents' in 20 minutes. After hanging up, I decided to stop at a gas station and grab a snack before going home so that my brother would be there when I got there. I pulled into the gas station. There were only a few cars in the lot, which is typical because it's a small town in the south where everything pretty much stops after 8 p.m. I parked and walked up to the door. There was a man standing outside the door smoking a cigarette. He opened the door for me without saying anything. This is normal Southern hospitality, especially since I'm female. Smiled, and I thanked him. Inside, there was another man standing by the door. I noticed him staring at me as soon as I came in. He gave me that gross up and down look and said something to the effect of, "Hey there, sexy. What are you doing alone?" Creepy as fuck, right? I just ignored him and walked towards the back of the store. He yelled after me and called me a bitch. I still ignored him, though. I figured he was drunk or high, or just an asshole, like most people around here talk a big game, but really can't back it up. I wasn't scared, just annoyed. I got my snacks and paid at the counter. When I walked back up to the door, both the men were gone. I was happy not to deal with anyone catcalling me. I began walking across the lot towards my car, which was probably about 100 feet away from the door. As I was walking, I looked down at my phone to see if enough time had passed for my brother to be at my parents'. When I looked up, the asshole who had hit on me was standing at the pumps staring. I looked at him for a second and continued walking. "Hey, you know you're supposed to answer a man when he speaks to you," he told me. I remember saying something snarky back to him and getting in my car. He looked pissed at my sarcasm. I locked the door as soon as I got in my car, started it, and was thinking of nothing but getting home to eat my snacks and hang out with my brother. I put my car in gear and realized the man had disappeared. I looked around before pulling out of the parking lot, only to realize that both men were sitting in a car facing mine across the lot. They were both staring at me and talking, occasionally even pointing towards me. I just stared at them, defiant and pissed. I didn't want them to think I was scared at all. While we were sitting there, having our staring contest, the man who had opened the door for me smiled and gave me the finger across the throat gesture, as in, "You're dead meat." I rolled my eyes and pulled out of the gas station, annoyed. To my dismay, they pulled out behind me. I hadn't been scared up until this point, because, as I said, most people here are a lot of talk but with no follow-through. Instead of going home, I took a few back roads that connect back in sort of a circle to see if they were really following me, which of course they were. When they realized I was testing them, they drove up really close to me and started laying on the horn. I couldn't see their headlights, they were so close. I called my brother and told him what was going on. He told me to just come home and he would handle it himself. I started driving home. The two assholes were still on my ass blowing the horn, even with my detours. I was only about 3 to 4 minutes from my parents. I slowed down to pull into the driveway, was immediately relieved. At the end of the driveway, my brother was standing shirtless, with his shoulders back, hands crossed in front of his stomach, clearly holding a pistol. His intimidating look, pit bull sitting up by his side. I drove around him into the yard. The two guys actually started to pull in behind me until they saw my brother. Then they hightailed it out of there. I have no idea what they would have done if I had stopped somewhere alone or kept driving. I always think fondly of that image of him standing there like a badass, ready to protect me. I'm thankful he was there waiting for me at my parents'.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.